Love is not emotion. It is power. Not power over others, but the power that prevents the self from remaining small. Where fear dissolves the self, love concentrates it. For Iqbal, love is the highest intensity of Khudi. It is the force that sharpens individuality, disciplines will, and binds the self to meaningful becoming. Without love, the self scatters. With love, it becomes luminous. Today, we continue our journey through Allama Khudi, Allama Iqbal's philosophy of the self. This is episode 47. Listen closely. Love is not what you feel. It is what you become. Love, in Iqbal's vision, is not sentiment. It is power. Not power over others, but power of becoming. The self learns that love is not softness. It is intensity. An intensity that concentrates the self until it becomes unmistakably real. The self understands that love sharpens individuality. Where fear dissolves the self, love condenses it. Condensation creates presence. Presence creates force. The self realizes that love is not attachment. Attachment weakens will. Love strengthens it. Love binds the self to what it is willing to become. The self sees that love awakens courage. Courage born of fear fades. Courage born of love endures. The self learns that love is movement toward meaning. Meaningless passion disperses. Meaningful love focuses energy into purpose. The self understands that love does not ask for safety. It asks for truth. Truth demands exposure. Exposure strengthens sincerity. The self realizes that love intensifies perception. Perception sharpened detects what matters. What matters directs life. The self sees that love is not escape from discipline. It requires more discipline than fear ever could. Fear avoids pain. Love accepts it willingly. The self learns that love strengthens endurance. Endurance driven by obligation collapses. Endurance driven by love persists. Even when reason falters. The self understands that love gives weight to action. Action without love is mechanical. Action infused with love becomes meaningful. The self realizes that love is the fire that tempers the self. Without fire, metal remains weak. With fire, form becomes strength. The self sees that love resists imitation. Imitation cannot sustain passion. Love demands originality. Originality preserves identity. The self learns that love creates loyalty. Loyalty to vision. Loyalty to truth. Loyalty to becoming. The self understands that love does not dissolve the self. It clarifies it. What the self loves reveals who it is. The self realizes that love removes hesitation. Hesitation fragments will. Love unifies it. The self sees that love invites sacrifice. Sacrifice accepted purifies intention. Purified intention strengthens action. The self learns that love protects the self from despair. Despair feeds on detachment. Love restores connection. The self understands that love intensifies responsibility. Responsibility embraced expands capacity. Capacity expanded deepens presence. The self realizes that love is not calm. It is focused intensity. Intensity directed creates transformation. The self sees that love awakens creativity. Creativity fueled by love endures resistance. The self learns that love binds the self to the future. Future envisioned through love demands commitment now. The self understands that love demands courage, not to retreat. Retreat weakens identity. Commitment strengthens it. And the self begins to understand. Love is not comfort. It is the force that refuses the self to remain small. The self begins to understand that love is the energy that keeps the self from dissolving. Under pressure. Pressure without love fractures. Pressure carried by love forms strength. The self realizes that love is not reaction. It is orientation. An orientation toward what deserves devotion. The self understands that love does not soften discipline. It sharpens it. Discipline sustained by love does not feel imposed. It feels chosen. The self sees that love clarifies hierarchy. Not everything deserves equal devotion. Love chooses what stands above convenience. The self learns that love intensifies will. Will unsupported collapses. Will ignited by love becomes unstoppable. The self understands that love resists mediocrity. Mediocrity thrives on indifference. Love demands excellence. The self realizes that love is not possession. Possession confines. Love expands. The self sees that love transforms fear. Fear confronted by love loses authority. Authority reclaimed strengthens identity. The self learns that love refines desire. Desire purified no longer seeks excess. Excess distracts. Focus deepens. The self understands that love unifies action. Fragmented effort weakens. Unified effort amplifies impact. The self realizes That love is not emotional dependency. Dependency weakens autonomy. Love strengthens independence. By giving it purpose, the self sees that love creates inner stability. Stability formed by love resists chaos. Chaos loses influence. Where devotion stands firm, the self learns that love demands presence. Presence sustained deepens commitment. Commitment anchors becoming. The self understands that love exposes false motivations. False motivations dissolve when effort is sustained. Sincerity remains. The self realizes that love deepens accountability. Accountability accepted strengthens trust. Trust stabilizes action. The self sees that love must endure disappointment. Disappointment without love turns into bitterness. Disappointment with love turns into learning. The self learns that love strengthens patience. Patience fueled by love does not feel heavy. It feels meaningful. The self understands that love expands courage. Courage driven by duty collapses. Courage driven by love advances despite uncertainty. The self realizes that love intensifies creativity. Creativity guided by love refuses imitation. Originality preserves truth. The self sees that love resists fragmentation. Fragmentation weakens identity. Love unifies intention. The self learns that love makes suffering bearable. Suffering resisted becomes despair. Suffering embraced through love becomes refinement. The self understands that love binds effort to destiny. Effort without love fades. Effort sustained by love shapes the future. The self realizes that love does not demand clarity first. It creates clarity through commitment. Commitment sustained reveals direction. The self sees that love is not blind. It sees fully and chooses anyway. The self learns that love strengthens moral courage. Moral courage without love fractures. Love gives it resilience. The self understands that love gives meaning to sacrifice. Sacrifice without love exhausts. Sacrifice infused with love ennobles. The self realizes that love stabilizes identity. Amid uncertainty, identity stabilized resists erosion, and the self begins to feel. Love is not an emotion that visits. It is a force that reshapes the self permanently. There comes a moment when the self understands that love is not something it feels. It is something it becomes. The self realizes that love is the highest concentration of the self's energy. Energy scattered weakens. Energy gathered through love creates force. The self understands that love aligns the self with what transcends it, not by dissolving individuality, but by strengthening it until it can stand in relation to something greater. The self sees that love does not erase struggle. It gives struggle meaning. Meaning allows endurance. Without resentment, the self learns that love is the force that prevents the self from retreating into comfort. Comfort seeks ease. Love seeks truth. The self understands that love intensifies responsibility. What the self loves, it must protect. Protection requires strength. Strength cultivated through devotion becomes character. The self realizes that love demands sacrifice, not as loss, but as affirmation. What is sacrificed reveals what is valued. The self sees that love transforms discipline into devotion. Devotion does not count cost. It counts truth. The self learns that love binds the self to destiny. Destiny approached through love demands consistency. Consistency matures identity. The self understands that love is the fire that prevents the self from becoming mechanical. Mechanism repeats. Love creates. The self realizes that love expands courage beyond calculation. Calculation protects safety. Love risks becoming. The self sees that love resists despair, even when outcomes are uncertain. Uncertainty endured strengthens faith. The self learns that love deepens humility. Humility accepts limitation. Limitation embraced refines strength. The self understands that love is not indulgence. It is commitment to growth beyond self-interest. The self realizes that love clarifies purpose. Purpose clarified organizes life. Life organized moves with dignity. The self sees that love awakens reverence. Reverence for effort. Reverence for truth. Reverence for becoming. The self learns that love preserves individuality without isolating the self. Individuality affirmed invites connection. The self understands that love is not certainty. It is fidelity. In the absence of certainty, the self realizes that love strengthens the will beyond exhaustion. Exhaustion tolerated does not defeat devotion. The self sees that love purifies intention. Intention tested by time reveals sincerity. The self learns that love prepares the self for eternity, not eternity of duration. but eternity of significance. Significance earned through devotion. The self understands that love is the final intensifier of Khudi. Without love, the self remains incomplete. With love, the self becomes luminous. And finally, the self understands love is not what the self seeks. Love is what the self becomes when it refuses to abandon meaning.